everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with round 3 of the FIA Manufacturers Championship. This time we're driving at the Blue Moon Bay infield track. It's the reverse variant. I only learnt this on the day of this race. I expected it to be the other way round for some reason. I didn't even know there was a reverse variation, so I jumped on very quickly at lunchtime, did 10 minutes just to get myself used to the track, and then in the race, in the qualifying, we had 30 minutes before qualifying to start getting a bit more used to the track, and we got a little bit better. Qualifying wasn't brilliant. The other Renault did qualify ahead of me in 6th position, although he got a massive slipstream off myself and another car, which probably did help him out quite a bit. He ended up about 3 tenths ahead of our time, as you can see there. We're down in P12, only about 3-4 tenths of the other Renault, but it was mainly because of the slipstream. I think he had a pretty much equal speed to ourselves in terms of pace, but he got a huge slipstream and I just couldn't get a slipstream. Every time I tried to get a slipstream off someone, they'd just move out the way and slow down, so I couldn't get it. So unfortunately we're down in P12, and this track just, it just doesn't suit the Megane at all. It really does struggle around this track. It has massive issues with understeer and acceleration, and it just struggles a lot. So today's race was just about limiting the damage that was going to be caused and trying to get myself some solid points in this race today, because I just need to get a reasonable amount of points. Not many people have decided to go the Renault, which I was quite surprised about, because it was quite a it's not a bad car for this season of the tracks. It's just obviously with the GR4 tracks, that's where it will suffer, but you can make that up with the GR3 tracks. That's why I chose it, and it looks like we're going to get a solid and easily into that top 24 stars race, because we're top already with just 2 races. A lot of other drivers done 3, so we're starting the race. We're starting P12, and we need to start and see if we can get ourselves up the field a bit more. I'm pretty confident my race consistency and pace will be a bit better than what my qualifying of P12 shows here now. So we're going to start the race straight away in the. We got a really good gear change when the lights went green, which gave me a massive slipstream on the guy ahead. They need to sort this really, because that's not fair, but I'm not going to not take advantage of it. However, on the tight line, bit rusty on the track, and I go into this corner a little bit deeper. Should have braked a little bit earlier. I tried to get myself way ahead into that corner so I wouldn't cut him up, and in the end I ended up going too deep and he just undercuts me. So clever driving by P11 there, who then obviously gets me back, and now we're stuck behind them again. And being stuck behind that RUF was not going to be the most enjoyable experience. However, I could see a lot of cars up ahead, and I started to think to myself, I don't really want to just use one fuel mixture and just burn my fuel away and go aggressive, because I'm probably not going to make many places up. You can see how packed the grid is ahead of me, so you can see I'm into fuel mixture 6 now. I'm going to go defensive, and the aim for this race, I thought I'm just going to go for a real fuel management race and see if we can get some places in the pit stop and just keep it consistent and just make up places, because I was pretty confident at this track a few people are going to make errors. People are going to make little errors hitting the walls, they're going to make errors getting penalties, hitting each other. So the aim is just to stay out of trouble, keep it clean, get back into one fuel mixture on the straight, get myself in the slipstream, and then again use that slipstream to save fuel once we're in it properly. So at the end of the straight, you'll see me putting the fuel mixture down to 3 or 4 or something like that, and see we're down to the fuel mixture 6, just really saving that fuel, because there was no point trying to overtake at that position. All that would happen was probably someone would get a penalty. So I'm just saving the fuel, giving myself some, like, obviously power on the exits, and we run a little bit wide there, but we get away with that. Going into the braking zone, not panicking too much at this stage, because I know that I've got reasonable race pace, although this car is probably one of the slower GR4 cars you'll come across on this track. It just doesn't suit it. The front wheel drive system on this car really struggles. You can see, look at the way I'm putting the throttle inputs in. You have to really slowly. It's really good at, do you know what, this car is actually a really good car to learn gradual throttle inputs, because you benefit so much from it if you really are gentle with the throttle. You can put assists on with this car that will help out. I do know that I've seen some people using stability management that does actually make this car really a lot easier to drive, but I'm not into that. I'd rather just do it the proper way. So just ABS on. We haven't got traction control or anything like that on, so I'm just doing it by my throttle control. You can see, if you watch the throttle inputs, a lot of the time through the corners on the exits, you'll see me really slowly feeding that power through as I'm coming out the corner, because if you just plant your foot down, it just tends to spin up the front tyres, takes a lot of wear out of them, and you just understeer a lot. So that's one issue when you came to the end of the stints with this car. When the tyres do run down on the grip, this car is a really tricky car to get the turn in while accelerating. So you've just got to be really patient on the throttle, and that's something I was trying to learn. I've obviously done Monza, but Monza's the corners at Monza, they're not really corners that, the only really corner you kind of get a bit is that it's the first chicane, second chicane, but it's not a long corner. They're like little chicanes, so it doesn't really affect them so much. And then the two Lesmos, you're off throttle during them. You're just coasting a lot of the time through them corners, so you kind of get away with them. But these corners are on power, long corners, a lot of these, so you really have to be careful with the understeer. So you can see again, I'm trying to save fuel. I'm just holding back behind all these cars here. We're in P11. Obviously that wouldn't be a good result for myself, so I do need to get myself up a little bit more. So I'm just trying to stay with these as much as possible and save as much fuel as possible. I needed to really beat the other Renault. That was the aim for today, because he's the only other guy that's going to be close to me, I think, in the for this car, getting in the top 24 stars. But there's 2 cars allowed anyway, so I'm pretty confident it'll be me and this other guy that's in this race that will make it through to the top 24 stars race when it comes to that on Saturday. So that race is going to be a tricky one, because although the Renault RS01 is a very strong car at Suzuka, it's also one of the hardest cars to drive. When you come to the hairpin, the car just wants to rotate on you all the time, so I've got to try and figure that corner out. So hopefully I can put some good solid practice in on Saturday to get myself confident with that car at that track, because otherwise that corner is going to catch me out, and know that you have to brake really early, like with the car anyway. So we need to really put some practice in and try and get some consistency there. As you can see, we managed to get closer again, using that fuel saving, constantly saving fuel when I'm in their slipstream in this section. There was no point me using one fuel mixture, burning my fuel away. As you can see, another car's made a mistake, ran wide, and we're now up to P10. So far it's not going too bad. You can see we're making places up without having to really make any overtakes, and we're saving fuel, so it's all going well. As in Megane, the other Megane has obviously got a time penalty there, and that moves us up another place. Good for us is that he's the only other person that's really in the, I think, in the chance of getting in the top 24 stars race with ourselves. So we're both pretty much going to be in that. So at this stage, this is good news for me. We're in P9. We're going to have a little look now, but then again, I see that Nissan going for an overtake, so there's no point me throwing this up the inside, because the chances are you're going to have 4 close cars bunched close together and it'll be an incident. So again, I save fuel, I drop back. I don't want to get a penalty. I want to stay away from penalties again. So you know, you can see me always just thinking about the move and then not really trying it. I'm keeping it in fuel mixture 6. I just want him to think I'm going to make a move, and he actually runs into P7 there. And the Evolution, it looks like he might have a time penalty after that, because there was quite a strong contact between the Porsche and that Evolution. As you can see, that's a very fast driver, the guy in P6, so I'm guessing he was probably saving a lot of fuel as well during this phase, and he's actually got looks like he's got a strong penalty there, so he's backed off and taken that penalty there, which again shows you the penalty system. A few issues still, obviously, because that wasn't his fault. He got hit on the side going into that corner, nothing to do with his driving. It was actually P6 that went too aggressive into the corner, although I don't think it was deliberate, but still, it shouldn't be a penalty. The game should just let that go and maybe give him a strike or something, you know, some sort of system where it keeps tally of them before you get disqualified, a certain amount of them, and then yeah, you get disqualified. But I don't think anyone deserves a time penalty for that. But you know, we've gone through that, and we're just gonna let's see what happens in the next patch to see if they actually manage to fix it. You can see we're going to stay on board for pretty much all this race. The odd little replay will show, but I want to just keep on concentrating the on-board footage for this race. We're going to keep changing it up. We'll do probably the majority of the races I upload will be on board only, but we're going to still do some of them like we did with the last video, where we switch the camera angles around, we show the replays, etc. So you know, it's keeping variety and just, you know, keeping things different all the time. But this is how I've started my channel, with the onboard footage, so this is how we're going to concentrate on keeping most of the videos. We will still do the other ones as well though, obviously. So you can see now, staying again, using that fuel mixture 2 through this section now, because I was dropped back a bit, but I thought I still want to save fuel into fuel mixture 3 again for these corners, because these corners, this car, just look at the angles I'm having to get the car into these corners. It was such a hard car to get the wide angles in the way it understeers, and this final corner was a real nightmare in this car. I had to go so far, look how far wide I was having to go, and then really off the throttle. I can't put a full throttle on until you're pretty much mid-apex there, and then I can put the power down and try and get back into the slipstream with the Porsche in front of me. So at this stage of the race, things are going okay. We're on lap 7 now of 20, so nearly a third of the way through, about a third of the way through the race. And we're into P7, which is not bad considering, you know, we started in P12. We're just trying to keep it consistent, keep the saving fuel, and we've saved quite a bit of fuel as well, which is beneficial really at this stage. So hopefully in the pit stop stage, this is what I was hoping, was we were going to be able to maybe jump 1 or 2 places in the pit stop. We've got 3 cars very close in front of us, so there's a chance we can make a few places up in the pits and get ourselves a little bit further ahead. Obviously I'm doing a lot of fuel saving at this stage, so I need to bear that in mind in the pit stop as well, although I want to try and go a bit more aggressive with the pit stop. I knew at this stage I need to go a little bit more aggressive to try and make sure I can make some places up, and if we have to defend, we have to defend at the end. So you can see into fuel mixture 3 again. I'm trying to save that fuel as much as possible while trying to stay reasonably close, so dropping it between fuel mixture 3 and 2 at this stage. Fuel mixture 1 there now for the real acceleration zone. This final corner though, he's even nearly caught the Porsche out there. You saw his rear end going really loose through that corner, and we actually got the power reasonably well through that corner this time, even though look how bad the front tyres are taking the wear. That's the issue with this car on this track. It really does take a lot of the wear off them front tyres. You know, with it being front wheel drive, all that power is going to them front tyres, and that's why you've got to be so careful at putting the power on through the corners, because it just wants to understeer. So if you can just master this in terms of slowly feeding that power through the corners, it really will help you out with throttle control, because although the good thing is it's a car that won't punish you as well, whereas rear wheel drive car, if you're trying to do that and then like floor and suddenly it'll spin out, this car won't spin out, it'll just understeer. So it does teach you a bit of throttle control, this car, and it does take a bit of getting used to be brutally honest. It's not as it's an easy car to drive, okay, but to get the most out of it, you really do have to have a very delicate throttle inputs to make sure the car doesn't understeer through them corners. So you can see now we're getting close. We've got P4, 5, 6 right in front of us there, and I think P3 is a little bit further up the road. I really wasn't worried about getting too far in terms of P3, 2 and 1 etc, because the way this race has gone, if I would have qualified higher, I would have gone for the faster way of doing this race, which would have been running 1 mixture throughout the whole race and just burning the tyres out and then getting in the pits, filling it back up and going flat out again. But the way this race has gone, there's no point, I wouldn't be able to get through all the cars in front of me. So the best tactic to use was just use some of the fuel up, save a lot of fuel, stay with them as much as possible, and then just try and jump them in the pits, because I could have probably got through 1 or 2 of them, but the chances was you're going to come into contact, you're going to get penalties. So I just went for the safer option of just trying to stay with them and save a lot of fuel. As you can see, we've done quite well on the fuel. We're on lap 9 and we still got 6.5 laps of fuel, so nearly over 40% of our fuel is still in the car, and we're coming up to the pit stop phase soon. I didn't want to pit early with this car. There was no way I was pitting on lap 9. I mean, I would have been tempted if we were going really aggressive with the fuel mixture from the start and we qualified better. I might have been tempted just to try and gain a few places and then go defensive at the end, but with the situation we're in now, there's no real point for me to do that, because I'm just using lower fuel mixtures and I'm trying to save that fuel for the pit stop phase. So at the moment, I'm just going to hold behind these guys. You can see the Porsche's actually managed to overtake P6, and it looks like he's going to go in the pits on this lap. You can see that he goes for that tighter line straight away. He goes down the inside and he nearly lost control there, and then he's going to cut back, and there was nearly contact. He had to be careful with that Nissan, so he's gone for the early stop. You can see he's got 24% fuel left, so I knew instantly. We got 38 at this point, so I knew that there was a good chance I'd jump him in the pits, because he's obviously been using the 1 fuel mixture pretty much throughout the race, maybe the odd times lowering it down a bit. So I'm just going to go a little bit fuel saving through this corner. Fuel mixture 2, try and save some fuel, keep it aggressive though. So fuel mixture 2, you can still get some good pace. You can see the McGann behind us also in our slipstream. I was a little bit worried that he would have been able to save a lot of our fuel using our slipstream, because when you're in the slipstream you can save a little bit more fuel. You do in general you save, I think there's actually an amount you save just by being in the slipstream. So that's one thing that I was very aware of at this stage, so I did need to try and still save the fuel to make sure that we could jump him in the pits in case he had been doing a lot of fuel saving also during the early phases when we were obviously all in the slipstream. So he was battling a lot more at the start though, so whether he was saving the fuel as much as we was right from the start, I'm not too sure. So we're in P6 at the moment. Obviously one guy's pitted early, so we'll see where we come out and see if these guys also pit on this lap. You're going to see that. So P4 and 5, I think both going to go in the pits. I think they will do, so let's have a little look. Yeah, both guys into the pits. The Nissan takes a very late entry into that pit. So we're going to see now we've got 32% and we've actually got a little bit more than the Renault, so we managed to save more than the Renault and more than some of the other guys. There's one other guy with 32%, the same as us, but a lot of the other guys have got nowhere near as much fuel than us, so I was really happy with that. So I decided to go aggressive with the diamond, pretty much stopping it on the diamond. I wasn't going to put extra in this time, I was just going to go for that same method of saving fuel, and we've actually jumped a few places. You can see there we're up to P5, which is really good, and that guy in P4 hasn't pitted yet, so we've actually jumped to technically a P4 at this stage, but we've got a lot of fuel saving to do still to get to the end with this mixture. So some of them guys behind me might have fueled up a bit more, so they could go a little bit more aggressive like what I do sometimes. So it's just about defensive driving now to the end, and I'd be really happy with a P5 from this point at the end of the race, because starting P12, the aim was just to get myself up a few places and limit the damage. It's been a good race so far, it's been a clean race, there's been close battling going on, and we've jumped up a few places, and now I've just got to try and do my best at seeing if I can get some good solid points in this race. As you can see there, the guy in front of me, I think he's going to go in the pits on this lap, the driver in P4, or it might be a guy that's ahead of him actually. Let's have a little look if it might be a different driver. I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure that one guy went in the pits at this stage now after this lap, so let's just keep an eye on that P4. Is he going to go in the pits on this lap, or is it a different guy? It's actually a different guy. It's actually P3 there, you see. It was P3 that was not pitted yet, so now we're going to try and break that slipstream with the car behind. He's coming over to get back in our slipstream, so I'm going to creep back over, and actually he looks like he's not bothered with the slipstream at this stage. I personally would have tried to get that at this stage, but maybe he wasn't that worried about snaking down the road, but he's very close. We've back into fuel mixer 2, so I've still got to save a lot of fuel, remembering that that diamond took into account that I was using the fuel mixer 6 and the fuel mixer 4 on 3 and stuff, so I've really got to be aware of that in my mind, and but just try and hold them off. I was really going to just have to push the fuel to the very limits in this race. There was no other way of doing it. The only way I was going to be able to hold these guys off was by using one mixture down that straight and then just trying to save fuel during these corners. But this Megane, the way it understeers in the corners, is just such a hard car to drive. So you can see at this stage we had lost touch with pretty much the front runners in this race. There was not really much chance of keeping up with the Lexus RCF during this race. It really, that car suits this track. It's got a lot of speed and it can carry speed through the corners as well. So really there was not really much chance of doing anything with the Megane here. So I've just got to try and get the best result I physically can. As you can see, P4 also goes in the pits there. So we're up to that was P. I can't work that out. What that was, whether that was P3 or P4. So we're up to P4 now, and we're in the top 4. This is looking like a good solid chance for some points at this stage, but look how close the guy is behind us. I think he's driving the is it the Mazda GR3 by looks of it? I think it is. So again, that car is probably a better handling car than the car we're in terms of grip around the corners, but again, I don't know if its top speed is as good as ours. I've never driven that car, so didn't know what to expect from that car in terms of speed. But however, he then disconnects on that corner. It looks like he disconnected as his car just went straight into the barrier. So luckily for us, that's one car away from us, and now we've got I think that is the Nissan GTR that was in front of us during the pit stop just as he went in. That's what we've got behind us now, and that car is a very grippy car. I know that with that car you can really get on the power through the corners. I've driven it at Brands Hatch. It just has a ton of grip, so I was a little bit worried about that car being behind me with how much grip you get out of it. So now we really do need to try and just maintain a gap to the guy behind and see if we can just hold him off as much as possible. It looks like the Renault is just behind that GTR as well, and I'm trying to break the slipstream. You can see they're snaking about in the straights a bit, just trying to loosen them a bit and just stop them getting a solid slipstream throughout that full length of the straight, because it does break it a little bit. They still do get it, but it just interrupts it slightly. So you can see going through these corners, fuel mixture free, pushing fairly hard, trying to make sure that I can just hold some sort of a gap. This is the corners that I worry about with this car, because look how patient I have to be on the throttle. I can't put any full throttle until pretty much the car is in a straight line, and then again for this corner I have to be so patient going through the corner. I can't put any inputs really on the throttle. You can see I'm just putting 40-50% input, and then when the car's in a straight line, early upshift and then full input. That's the best way I found to preserve the tyres and obviously try and get some acceleration out of it. You just have to be so gentle with the accelerator, because if them front wheels start spinning, you lose a lot of time on acceleration in this car. So it's a real different type of driving, and it's good. I like the way it is on GT Sport. You can really feel the difference between the front wheel cars, the rear wheel cars, the front-engine rear-wheel drive cars. There's a real distinction between the handling, and this car has definitely got a real distinction from obviously the other cars with it being front-wheel drive, and it just does take a lot of getting used to. You can see over the line with a 1 minute 13.4, again saving fuel. We're not pushing these laps 100%, we're just trying to save fuel. You can see our laps have been a 13.4, 13.4, 13.4, so we're trying to keep it consistent while saving the fuel. However, I was starting to notice as I was going over the line that the amount of laps left was a little bit too low on terms of the laps I've actually got to drive left. It was like 5.7 or 5, it was like 5.9 when we were going over the line, so I really need to start doing more and more fuel saving. And as you can see there, because we're doing the more aggressive fuel saving, we've got that Nissan GT-R getting closer and closer, so we're having to drive defensive as well as the fuel saving. This is not the easy task. I knew he wouldn't be able to make a move there, so I wasn't too worried with defending that line, and I needed to stay over to that right hand side to give myself the best sort of entry into that corner. You can see how this Megane really struggles with any sort of corners like these. Look how much more speed that Nissan's able to take through the corner. So final corner, I need to try and get a really strong exit from the corner to make sure that I can get good straight line speed down the straight. The Nissan is also a fast car down the straight, and in my slipstream I was guessing as soon as we get to 6th gear he's going to probably be able to close in on us. So during the early phase when the Megane's strong on acceleration, I'm able to hold that gap off. So you can see we're going over the line, and with 4 tenths up on him behind us, we've only got 4.7 laps of fuel left, so I need to get really aggressive with the fuel saving. So you can see me now going to fuel mixture 4 and trying to save fuel while holding him off. Managed to take reasonable speed through that corner, and again holding him off into another overtaking opportunity, which is in this corner. We're doing an okay job at the moment, but we've got to go a lot more aggressive with the fuel saving. I knew that I'd have to do it, so trying to hold him off was going to be a very, very hard task at this stage. This has been a good and enjoyable race. I really enjoyed being involved with this race, and it's something different. Normally we're pushing a little bit harder, but in this race we had to try and find a way to get into that top 5 without doing it through just pure speed. This car's not the fastest car, so we had to just try and keep it consistent, save fuel, and be a bit more tactical. And at this stage it's working okay, and the guy behind us is putting a lot of pressure on, though. As you can see, we're coming to the end of lap 16 again, taking that really wide line. I really was concentrating on trying to hook up that last corner. It was really important that I had to hook that corner up every time and really try and get him out the slipstream. You can see me moving around the slipstream, and you can see it actually worked slightly as he starts reducing the amount he's gaining on us. So also he could have been saving some fuel. So again, I need to use that one fuel on the straights, and again go really aggressive on the fuel saving as we come through to the corners. As you can see there, still 3.7 laps of fuel left, which isn't really enough at this stage of the race. So we've got to keep that fuel saving going and just try and see if we can hold him off for as long as possible. At this stage I was pretty much thinking to myself, I'm just going to have to go for it and just see if we can save fuel and just see if we can hold him off. And if we run out of fuel before the end, it's going to have to be, because I need to be really in that top 5, and I can see if I lose position to this guy, the Megane's going to be close to us, but I didn't know what his fuel was like as well. So I need to hold this guy off for as long as possible, even if it's just to the last lap or something. Just hold this guy off, just so I can stay in that top 5 position, because we're going to have to do some severe fuel saving on that final lap, the way this is looking at the moment. You can see we managed to do a fair amount of fuel saving on the lap, but we hit that wall as we come off the exit, which has really compromised our entry into this corner. Although we've managed to hold him off again, we got on the power reasonably well there. We're getting really close to that wall on the left hand side, and luckily we don't come into contact with that wall. And as we go over the line, we've got it down to 2.9 laps of fuel left, 2.8 as we go over the line. So still we've managed to get a bit better on the fuel saving there, but we need to do more. So you can see again, I was looking in the mirrors on the car mirror, and I didn't look where I was going. I scraped the wall a bit there. So again, he gets really close. We're gonna have to go really defensive through this corner, try and get a solid exit and make sure that he can't make a move into this corner up ahead. We managed to do that this time, and he's still just behind us, only a few tenths back there. So my guess was he was saving a lot of fuel up at this stage, just holding his time and waiting for that opportunity to arise so he can make a move. We run a little bit wide through that corner, but what that does is we get a reasonable exit. I decided to go into one fuel mixture, which is really risky at this stage when I need to save the fuel, but I've got to keep him behind me. I can't let him go past me with an easy overtake. I wanted to make life as hard as possible for this guy behind me. I'm not going to just give up a position. I will fight for these positions as hard as I can, but as fairly as I can as well. I'm not going to compromise people's races. I just like to make sure that I'm making things as hard as possible. So you can see again, we get a nice clean entry into that corner. We don't hit that apex as nicely as I would have liked, and we get really close to that wall. I'm not sure if we actually hit that wall then. I'm going to go over to that right hand side just in case we did. He's getting really closer and closer down that side there now. So you can see he's side by side nearly. He's only a tenth behind us, but he's gone back into the slipstream, as obviously I was using that one mixture because I had to do it, and we're not looking good on the fuel at this stage. Only 1.7 laps of fuel left, so I've got to go really defensive on the fuel and try and save as much as I can for these final 2 laps now. So this is going to be a really hard task to hold on to any sort of positions in this race. Now you can see we've actually got a gap to P6 there. From P5 to P6 there's a little bit of a gap, so we've got a cushion there. So now it's looking like we're going to be able to get an okay result if we can just finish the race. So I'm just trying to save fuel. You can see I'm using fuel mixture 2. I'm not going to go into 1 as much as I was before. We briefly go into 1 there just to hold him off this straight, but then back into 2, and now we need to really go aggressive on the fuel saving for the last lap. We've got to do it to be able to get to the end. But like I said, I was on the mindset that if I run out of fuel on the line, I have to do it just to try and hold on to his place. So he's getting really close. He's actually going to go for that move down the right hand side. I decide to stay really far to the left as he goes wide because he's took that tight line and tried to undertake him, and we managed to get back underneath him, which is really important, and we get that position back. So we're back into P4 and just about got the car behind us. However, now he's got a really strong slipstream behind us. Let's have a little look at that move, how it went. He went on the inside. I then decided to do the undercut because of what I could see he was going to do. You could see me instantly go on the undercut, get on the power early, and just pray that them front tyres wouldn't lose grip. And we just about pulled that off and get back in front. So again, we've managed to hold him off. We've got 1 more lap to try and hold him off. It's going to be a task because we've got to save so much fuel on this last lap. You can see there, 0.8 laps of fuel left. Is a real issue. So I go to fuel mixture 6. I try and hold it on the inside of fuel mixture 6. He's on our outside. He's got a really strong line through that corner now. We've got a really tight compromise exit. Can't really use any strong fuel mixtures. So he's on that left hand side now. He's actually overtook. He's going to go really deep into that corner. I'm going to try and take a tight line, and as I get on the power, I go too aggressive. We get a lot of understeer and we come into a slight bit of contact, but we don't get a penalty luckily, and nor does he. So luckily there was no penalties involved with that, but it was only a slight scrape where my car just understeered. There was nothing I could do about it, and now I've got to try and save more fuel to get to the end. So let's have a little look at how that played out and why we basically lost that position. So he ran really wide. I had to stay on the inside. I tried to give myself some angle into the corner, but I just couldn't get the exit speed. We were running 6 on the fuel mixture and level 3, so we just didn't have the speed. And then he ran really deep into that corner. The Nissan's got a lot of grip compared to the Megane. I go hard on the accelerator, and that just understeers the car, and the Megane behind us trying to make a move also. Luckily we managed to hold off that Megane and just about keep that position, but we've lost that position. I did fight it as hard as I physically could, and unfortunately on the final lap we lose that P4, but we're still in that top 5 in terms of the positions in the race, so that's a good thing. You know, we started P12. We've just got to try and hold this to the very end and see if we can maintain this P5. The Megane's really close behind us. He's a matter of 3/10 behind us. We're going into the final corner, taking a nice time. We've got 0.2 laps of fuel. I've just got to pray that it ends. I go to 1 fuel mixture just in case the car in front of me runs out of fuel. I wanted to just be able to do it. We're going to get very close, and it looks like the Megane has run out of fuel by the looks of it as he goes down the start straight. Either that or he got a time penalty. He's got, I'm guessing, either a time penalty or run out of fuel. Have a little look on the screen there, and it looks like he had a penalty. So he had penalties, but we take P5, which is good enough for considering we started in P12. So really happy with that race, and I think I did a lot of damage limitation with that race. We ran a good strategy to get ourselves up into that position and take away some solid points. We came away with 1,700 points, I think it was, from that race. Not a massive amount, but for this car at that track, it's a very acceptable amount. And we've got another week track coming up on Friday. I think it is at the Dragon Trail track in the GR4 again in the Megane. I don't think that my car is going to be strong there with them corners again. A lot of fast corners, which are probably going to cause me a bit of an issue. However, we've got a reasonable, it could be a strongish race on Thursday, but I'm not that keen on the track. It's a really short track. And then Saturday, if we can get in that top 24 stars race, which is looking very likely that we will do, we're going to be in a reasonable car, but we've just got to hope that we can keep the car consistent around that track. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. A bit different. We had to go defensive and do a lot more tactical driving. trying to gain our positions in the pits and just try and make up some places. I think we did a good job and we come away with a P5. So thanks again for watching, everyone. We're going to be back with more videos very soon, so make sure you subscribe and hit that notification button if you haven't already done, and we'll be back with more GT Sport, Project Cars 2 and Assetto Corsa very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.